Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, Casey Porter here, joined by Austin Brubaker, as we're going to talk about some Dodgers offseason stuff. We're going to break into some prospect talk again tonight. We are going to break all that out. We are going to talk about whatever prospect you want. I have a whole lot of interviews set up. Cam Decker, Cam Day, I've got Elijah Hainline. I've got all sorts of prospects. Patrick Copen. I think I have like 10 of them set up for interviews. So I'm super excited about it, but I'd love to talk prospect talk tonight with you. Whoever you want to talk about, I know Zaire Hope has been a hot button topic, and so there's a lot to talk about. And then there's a lot to talk about as far as the Dodgers go. As we bring in Austin, the name of this show is At the Dodgers Building a Dynasty. I did not put a question mark there. If you notice, I put an exclamation point. Yeah. 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 I'm telling you, man. Oh, man.
To win that one championship, but it is to be able to do and build a dynasty that is a rarity in this game of baseball. And that obviously is what each of us wants. We want the Dodgers to be consistently in and winning World Series championships. And there is a lot of different ways that the Dodgers could go about approaching that, which makes this so incredibly fascinating. And the offseason is an indication of where this Dodgers team is going and planning on going to build this into a dynasty into the future. How aggressive will they be? What types of moves will they make? There is some news today that seems to be, there is at least a little bit of an indication of where things could potentially go. Now, just some things to take note. Yes, I think it was Fabian Ardaya was reporting some of the things that were said. Things can change with some of these moves, but it sounds like from some of the reporting that is out there, Mookie Betts is probably going to be coming back into the infield next year. Or at least that seems to be where some of the reports. And there is
that should be no surprise.
And there's a real possibility that this Dodgers pitching staff could transition into a six-man rotation. Those are two things of newer news that have been kind of broken over the past. Now, I've been doing a little bit of thinking about it.
You know why, right?
And I actually think Jay actually brought up a really good point in the comments of the last video, something of a blind spot that I hadn't even thought of, especially with Shohei Ohtani. Let's just briefly touch the six-man rotation, and then we can go into a wide variety of different topics. But because I think this is an interesting point that Jay pointed out, and I believe that it is accurate. Some of the value of Shohei Ohtani is not just that he can hit a ball a mile, and it's not just that he can pitch really well. He is also not two players on your roster.
Correct.
He is one player.
Yes.
And I believe
you get that extra roster spot.
I believe you would get an extra roster spot to where instead, and this is the math that I've been thinking has been a little bit off. Math that I've been thinking about is just having a traditional 13 pitchers on the roster. But I believe, and this could be totally wrong, with Shohei Ohtani being a two-way player, I believe you can have 13 pitchers and a Shohei Ohtani potentially be part of that, in which case you're having an additional starter. And in that case, a lot of the math for a potential six-man rotation starts to open up a little bit more. Now, I still think the Dodgers in that scenario, to keep their guys as rested as possible, could use one, probably two long relief guys to provide additional length. But that is something to keep in mind, and it might be a little bit tricky to find all of the different rules and stuff because Shohei Ohtani is the exception to the rule, and I'm sure Major League Baseball has all of that kept in mind as far as what type of approach. I don't know the exact language of the law right there, but that's an interesting point to keep in mind. But it is something to take note that the Dodgers are very heavily considering that, especially with wanting to keep their arms healthy and with the type of schedule that that some of the pitchers that they're bringing in have. With a traditional roster, that becomes incredibly difficult because you are taxing a shorter bullpen very often, especially if your pitchers are not able to provide you length. But if you have 14 pitchers instead of 13 pitchers throughout the entire year, that makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely it does. And then also another, just some reasons why I really feel like the Dodgers are building a dynasty. I think they're really going to go after Roki Sasaki. All rumors are that he's going to post and he's going to be available, and I don't think anybody can come in. I mean, I think it's a slam dunk the Dodgers will get him. I just don't see any way that he does not become a Dodger. As long as he does post, and like I said, the rumors are that he is going to post, and so we'll have to wait for that. So I think you're going to have Roki Sasaki, you're going to have shoheiohtani, you're going to have Tyler Glasnow back, you're going to have Yoshinobu Yamamoto, you're going to have Tony Gonsolin back, you're going to have Dustin May back, then you're still going to have all your young guys. You're going to have a return of Nick Frasso. You're going to have a return of Kyle Hurt. You're going to have Landon Knack still. You're going to have Ben Kasparius. You're going to have Bobby Miller. So there is a lot of roster crunching to do. You don't want these guys to be sitting in Oklahoma City. Now, we did see that you need depth. And then you also have Justin Robleski, right?
Yes. I mean, yeah, you got it really well.
But then you also have Jackson Ferris. Then you also, there's just such a – and then you have guys like Jared Karros, who I think is going to make his Major League debut next year. I really do. So there is so much depth to what the Dodgers are getting ready to do here that they have the ability to move on some of these guys that have a lot of value, and either go get a really badass shortstop or put Tommy Edman at shortstop, which is what I prefer, and then go get a really badass center fielder. You have the ability to go do that. I think the Dodgers are going to do everything they can to re-sign Teoscar Hernandez. They are going to re-sign Clayton Kershaw on a deal that is going to be so team-friendly. As much as people loved Clayton Kershaw to begin with already, they're going to love him even more. You already know that shoheiohtani's contract only counts $46 million a year towards the collective bargaining tax. So that's obviously very, very team friendly. And then Will Smith also deferred like the last 30% of his contract or something like that. And he's only $12.2 million towards the collective bargaining tax. So I think there's a lot of things you can do here. If you move Mookie Betts back to second base, that leaves shortstop, center field, right field if you re-sign Teoscar Hernandez. And you've got a lot of freaking bullets to fire to go get whoever the hell you want. And keep in mind you still have Andy Pages, who is very, very good. And then you also have James Outman, who we know he posted a really nice season his first year. He could have a really big bounce back and be a very good player. So the Dodgers, what makes me just so giddy is I kept saying this whole time, just win that first World Series. Remove the lid, get the pressure off, because this is likely to be the least, maybe this might end up being the best Dodgers team in the next 10 years because chemistry and all those things play a part, right?
Yes.
And the grittiness and all that. But I think it's safe to say it's going to be the least talented team the Dodgers have in the next probably 6 to 7 years.
They have the opportunity to do something incredibly special and incredibly rarely seen throughout the entire industry. And the Dodgers are in an interesting spot as far as where they're at with the roster, as well as philosophically, who do they want to be going forward in the future and what type of players that they want to be. Now, you got to give credit for the culture and for the players that have been part of this team, like what Clayton Kershaw did. I fully expected him to take that player option that he had. He did not. And he has all indications of coming back to this Dodgers team. It seems like that was an unselfish move to help this Dodgers organization potentially open up a roster spot throughout the course of the offseason, which especially because 6 of the roster spots on the 40-man roster are occupied by pitchers that have been injured and likely will miss at least some time during the 2025 season. That creates a very much a roster crunch to where if Clayton Kershaw can sign at the start of spring training, when you can add one of those guys to the 60-day injured list, you don't have to worry about one of those roster spots during the course of free agency. I think with what Shohei Ohtani did by deferring $68 million per year, created an unselfish culture for a lot of these Dodgers players. Now, with this Dodgers organization and where do they want to go moving forward?
Before you go on, I got the $46 million a year towards the CBT directly off of MLB.com. I mean, I'm looking at it right here off MLB.com.
Yep, that's how much it goes against the collective bargaining. How much actual salary he gets paid is $2 million.
Correct.
And that's just the way that
but towards how much the Dodgers towards their luxury tax, whatever you want to call it.
Yes, which is the important tax because that is the one that they have to pay penalties for if they go over, and
it's the only one they care about because they're swimming in money right now.
Oh, are you kidding me? They're making so much money right now.
Yeah, so the only thing that matters to them is roster spots. I mean, their currency right now is roster spots, and then limitations towards the collective, the CBT.
It is roster spots. It is that. And one other thing that could be valuable, that could play a role, which I did not say in my show on Saturday, which I talked a little bit about on Monday, has to do with potentially some player options. Because you cannot load this 40-man roster just with veteran-type players who do not have any minor league options. They won't accept roles down at the minor league level, in which case you wouldn't be able to staff
14
up
14 people have to be at AAA at some point,
Yes, you have to have guys that are at AAA, and you have to have guys that can move up and down, which is frustrating because moving up and down, I don't know if that maximizes the potential of each one of these guys, yet it is necessary for this organization to be able to have that depth going through the course of the season, which means that it is up to the Dodgers to make sure throughout the course of the season they make sure that some of these young arms that they have on their staff get a certain set amount of innings at the major league net level, no matter what, so they can get that experience, so that they can grow in their development to where even if they start off at the AAA level, let's say that Justin Robleski starts off at AAA, I want to see him pitching at least 70 innings at the major league, 60, 70, 50 innings, however many that you want, in order to get him that experience so he can take over and make the next jump that he needs to throughout his career. And I also think that would be good for this Dodgers pitching staff to be able to get some additional rest throughout the course of the season. I do not want Tyler Glasnow going for a record career innings throughout the course of the regular season,
and you want to be able to regulate
him break down too many often. The same thing with Shohei Ohtani. I don't want him going out there and wasting all of his arm talent with that. I want it to be used appropriately, and you have a lot of really good young guys that can provide additional depth. And that also, I think, would be necessary to provide bridges and provide rest to this bullpen. I think you remember how taxed this bullpen was throughout the course of the season. And that can have very serious ramifications down the line, especially after a World Series run where they were already taxed and then they expended a lot of resources during the run of the postseason. You can only do that so many times, and I'd like to get those arms additional rest, and I think providing additional length, especially if you turn to a 6-man rotation, would be extremely helpful. So I would still advocate on top of the 6-man rotation, which you just counted as 5 starters because then you can add Shohei Ohtani, the extra player. I would have probably 2 length guys in there as well, and then you would have if that was the case, you would be able to add 6 different high leverage arms that you could choose from.
Yeah. So I think you figure out which ones you want to be your 6 starters. You bring in Roki Sasaki. I'm done with pitching at that point because then you still have Tony Gonsolin. You still have Dustin May. You still have Bobby Miller. You still got Nick Frasso. You still got Kyle Hurt. You still have all the guys Clayton Kershaw. You still have all the same guys that you had last year in your bullpen, right? So I figure out my bullpen based on who is not going to be a starter this year. So Blake Trinan ended up, well, you still have Michael Kopech, right? I mean, so Blake Trinan ended up being the closer last year, right? I mean, couldn't you see Dustin May having that kind of just nasty Blake Trinan type stuff with a big-time edge to him, right? I mean, I could damn sure see Nick Frasso being completely dominant out of the pen with his high-riding fastball, his extension, the way he crossfires, and then his slider. I mean, if teams only got to see Nick Frasso one time, they are not hitting him. We know that same thing is with Kyle Hurt as well. So I think you go get Roki Sasaki, and then I think you dump all of your chips. And here's what else I will say. I'm going to say this again. Andy Pages is a right fielder, okay? We have the ability and the bargaining chips to not have to play players out of position. The Dodgers don't have to be versatile with their starters, with the amount of prospect capital and or talent capital. For one, we talked about all the chips that you have to put in to go get whoever you want, okay? Put Andy Pages in right field, and if he's going to be in your starting lineup, don't make him your center fielder. Make him your right fielder, and then go get the center fielder that you want, or the shortstop that you want if you're going to put Edman in center.
Yeah, so this brings up some really interesting conversation, especially with the announcement, or the illusion that it seems like Mookie Betts is going to be playing in the infield, which if he's playing in the infield, I think you and I would agree that means second base. Mookie Betts would be the second baseman of this Dodgers team.
No doubt. Yeah, no question.
So, just looking at roster-wise, what that does to this roster, based off the moves that they've made so far. One, and I've stated this pretty clearly on the show on Monday, Hunter Fiducia needs to be traded. Nothing to do with him. He has no path to this Dodgers team right now with them having Austin Barnes and with a Dalton Rushing coming up through this organization. I don't see a path with him, and it is totally unfair for him to be stuck wasting his time in Oklahoma City. He deserves to be somewhere where he gets an opportunity. And with the Dodgers' limited roster spots, which right now, without adding a single player to protect them from the Rule 5 draft, and without signing a single free agent, they are currently at 38 players. Which is what we talk about when we talk about roster spots.
So who are you going to add? I mean, you're liable to lose more Rule 5 guys this year than you ever have. Just because, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a criticism. That's actually a very, 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 very good thing, because it means you're just stacked with talent.
Yes. That means that there's a lot of talent that is really close, and that is there and available for you, to where a lot of the options that you could have could be limited.
The Dodgers are going to be like, they're going to lose some guys to the Rule 5 draft and just be like, God, man, that sucked. But then they're going to be like, what else could we do? I mean, there was just nothing else we could have done in this situation.
Yeah, there's going to be. The only potential counter that they could have to that is if they wanted to protect and save guys, especially guys that would have minor league options, because they have some injuries to some of the pitchers that they have currently on their staff. If they bring in some free agents, it might be they might have to find a reliever out there, which the Dodgers have shown the ability to be able to find a Ryan Brazier and turn them into something amazing, or get some of these veteran guys and be able to pull them up. But that could be a spot that they have. But what we're talking about is this roster has a ton of talent. You go up and down this roster, there's not a lot of guys that you point out and say,
well, especially you're going to go acquire a big position player and one more ace level type pitcher. I just don't think there's any doubt the Dodgers are going to do that at the minimum.
Yes. So with that, there's a couple of names. So I just wanted to mention Hunter Fiducia. I hope that he finds another spot with an organization that will give him a rightful chance to be able to succeed, because he's proven his worth at the minor league level. And that's just my heart for the player. From a selfish organizational standpoint, you could make an argument, but I can't make that argument knowing him and knowing that he's fought for that. I also think that this could spell serious doom as far as Gavin Lux and his role on this Dodgers team.
No doubt.
And I think that opens up a path to where the Dodgers look and probably do explore a trade of Gavin Lux, because I don't think they're going to make him the shortstop of this Dodgers team. And if Mookie Betts is playing second base, he's not platooning playing second base. He's playing second base every single day. The Dodgers, because they announced having Mookie Betts probably play in the infield, they probably lose a little bit of leverage as far as negotiation for Gavin Lux.
So let me add it. Let me chime in there just for a second, because I think everybody knows I love Gavin Lux. I got to see him in Tulsa. I got to talk to him at Oklahoma City. I still communicate with him on somewhat of a regular basis, and so I love Gavin Lux. I mean, I root for him on a personal level, not just because he plays for the Dodgers, right? But point blank, Tommy Edman's a better baseball player. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I don't think that's throwing shade on Gavin Lux. I think that's just, I mean, am I off there, Austin? Am I saying anything that's bad there to say Tommy Edman's a better baseball player than Gavin Lux?
I think they have similar offensive upside, but Tommy Edman right now has the defensive far superior upside at premium positions, and he's been able to do a lot more than Gavin Lux has right now, to where the Dodgers would see him as incredibly valuable, especially because he can play shortstop and he can play center field and wherever else the Dodgers would need.
So here's the beautiful thing about this. Gavin Lux showed in the second half of the season that whenever he is healthy, he is a really, really good second baseman.
Yes.
So there are a lot of good Major League Baseball teams now that maybe 6 months ago would love to have Gavin Lux be their everyday second baseman. I think the Dodgers cashed in on that situation. They won a World Series. They added his value. Gavin Lux put himself in a situation to where if the Dodgers deal him away, like I expect them to do, because he's too good to be depth. He's too good not to be playing every day, which is what would happen. I mean, I guess you could put Tommy Edman in center field and go find a shortstop. That's it. But I mean, that would put Mookie Betts. I just don't. I don't see the future for Gavin Lux in this organization. And right now is the time to strike, because you just won a World Series. He just had a huge at bat to help you win that World Series with the sacrifice fly with 2 strikes. Yes. He had an awesome second half of the season. He was a great defensive player, and he's going to be one more year away from that ACL. So some of that speed that he has might also turn into like better base running, more effective base running, like stealing bases and that kind of thing. So right now, I just don't ever see Gavin Lux having a higher value than he does right now. And I don't see any future role for him in the system, because I just think Mookie Betts is going to be the second baseman.
Yep, and if he's the second baseman, which I'm not anticipating Mookie Betts being the shortstop, and if he's going to the infield, second base is the only option, that eliminates the playing time for Gavin Lux. And for Gavin Lux's sake, I hope that they find him, and the Dodgers would be able to find some value for a Gavin Lux, whether they turn that into a major league caliber player, or whether they use that to help restock and get some additional guys for this farm system. Remember, some of the moves that Andrew Friedman has made is with everything in the organization in mind, not just to try to get major league talent, but also to try to get talent that they see and can identify as being talent that can help them in the future. Point to Michael Busch trade. That's the most obvious example in getting Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope, 2 players that are going to be Major League Baseball players in the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, I'm going to say it one more time, and this is my theme. The Dodgers have too much prospect capital, and then also too much Major League ready talent, whether it be like the all-star talent like Shohei Mookie Betts and that level of it, and or like even the Andy Pages type Major League ready talent, or the Landon Knack, Ben Kasparius level type. We didn't even mention Ben Kasparius in the pictures earlier either. So they have too much Major League ready talent, and then too much prospect capital with like the Nick Frossos, the Kyle Hurts, the Landon Knacks, the Jackson Ferrises, the Zaire Hopes, the Josue De Paulas, the Dalton Rushings, to play players out of position, which if you put Mookie Betts at shortstop, you are trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. You are playing Mookie Betts out of position. In my opinion, putting him in right field starting next year is playing him out of position, for the simple fact that, and hang with me, Mookie Betts is great. one, he wants to be a second baseman. That's number one. And two, it is going to be a hell of a lot easier to go get a Hall of Fame caliber right fielder than it is going to be go get a Hall of Fame caliber second baseman. You're going to get a lot better offensive player going and getting a right fielder like a Juan Soto than if you leave Mookie Betts in right field and then go try to get a second baseman.
Yeah, I think that is exactly right. So let's transition gears into a little bit of a different topic, a topic that I addressed pretty heavily on the show on Saturday. One of the most interesting names that I have in mind for this Dodgers team in 2025 and beyond, and I think the moves that the Dodgers make this offseason is going to probably have some of the biggest impact on his potential role, if you even see there being a potential role for him in the future, has to do with the name that you've already mentioned, Dalton Rushing.
Yeah.
What do the Dodgers do with him? What do they do, especially with the potentially Teoscar Hernandez situation? Because I think both you and I agree Dalton Rushing is going to be a stud in the major leagues. Yeah. I firmly believe in him probably more than any other player within this organization and his talents as far as what he's able to do at the organization. They obviously have Will Smith locked up long term. And if they do bring back a Teoscar Hernandez, especially if it's on a longer term 3 to 4 year window, does that completely block Dalton Rushing completely out of this organization or what they would do for him going forward? Because he, I believe, is far too talented to be sitting on the bench 2 out of 3 days. And with Shohei a designated hitter, and with Freddie Freeman at first base, at least for the next 3 seasons, how do they fit him as far as in the future? You think they find a way to put him at third base?
Yeah, him and Will Smith need to play third base. Absolutely. That needs to be the future of your third base there.
So you think Dalton Rushing should be?
They're both great athletes.
Yes,
they both have soft hands.
Yes,
neither obviously that they're used to the hard the hot corner type stuff, right? Yes. As far as blocking balls, they both would be great third base. They would be every bit as good as Max Muncy. And
which
one of them hits one
made a lot of improvements during this upcoming season.
So one of them's catching, one of them's playing third base.
Just looking at Max Muncy's outlook, he's going to be under contract for this season. Assuming things go pretty well, he's got a club option. I can almost guarantee you the Dodgers would pick up that club option. So you're looking
this year or for this year?
Not for this year. He's under contract this year for the 2026 season. So assuming that things go pretty well during this season, I would assume, given the production that Max Muncy has given and given the Dodgers' history of giving the clubhouse leaders and veteran type players the club option, especially with the Max Muncy deal, which, given the level of production he's given, is a really team-friendly type of deal, I would anticipate Max Muncy very likely being on this Dodgers team for 2 seasons. So is there a path? Is there a role for Dalton Rushing in the future of this organization? Because I also believe for this Dodgers team, they should be, and this is something that I get frustrated with about it, and this could just be a personal blind spot because I get to see these guys quite a bit. I want to see more of these younger guys getting more priority at bats, because what I fear for this team right now is that they could turn into a team that gets stuck on nostalgia and gets stuck on the other side of what's called the aging curve. Now, if you talk about Major League Baseball,
that's the only way they can screw this up. Is what you're saying.
That is one of the ways, and I'm going to talk to the audience just in case you guys aren't familiar with what the aging curve is. In Major League Baseball, there is a peak level of production that a player gets. Now, it's different for every single player, but it typically comes around 28, 29, 30 years old, maybe 31. You want to extend it to somewhere around that time period. Is
31 is really where it drops off on offense,
although with that, a lot of the younger players, that aging curve is starting to grow up, and a lot of the younger players are becoming a little bit more productive. So that's shrinking right there. With this Dodgers team, with a lot of the players that they have on there and a lot of the players that they have long term, you're getting a lot of guys that are starting to become on the other side of the aging curve. Now, that doesn't necessarily affect this Dodgers team in 2025, maybe not even 2026. But if you don't invest in the younger players, which it usually takes them a year or two to get acclimated to the major league level to where they can start to reach some of their potential, especially if you give them consistent, regular at-bats, I fear that the balance of this Dodgers team is going to be too far on the negative curve, the negative side, to where you haven't been investing in the younger at-bats and you don't have the supplemental pieces necessary to help fill this team. Now, the Dodgers could supplement that with just spending money and go out and spending free agency and go be able to do that. I don't know if that's necessarily the biggest long-term aspects, or perhaps it's still, I'm still under the mindset that the Dodgers have to fit under certain criteria or need some of those players that need to be on the major league minimum salary in order to help pay for some of the higher salary players, which you could say, hey, Shohei kind of throws that a little bit out of the window, throws that a little bit out of proportion. I still think the Dodgers would be wise to be able to invest into the at-bats of some of these younger guys like they did during the season with an Andy Pages, albeit they had to force him into a little bit of center field because of some certain situations, which they might be able to fit him into right field this year, which would be super cool, super exciting. With Dalton Rushing, I firmly believe in his talent, his leadership ability, and everything that he would provide to this organization. The question for him is, especially if you go out and re-sign a Teoscar Hernandez, which Teoscar Hernandez was amazing. He is a Dodger, or at least fits incredibly well with this culture. And depending on the price, which I don't necessarily want to be paying for 5-6 years of Teoscar Hernandez. I think that would be unwise at the end of that
three
contract.
at the most. That gets him to his 10 years. 3 does.
I think that is probably the most likely scenario. Yeah. However, I think there could be potentially some teams that try to make it an extended 2-4. Yeah, there could be some options that get picked up. I'm not going to dive deep into the contract with Teoscar Hernandez right now. What I'm saying with Dalton Rushing, you have an incredibly talented player, and you have an opportunity to be able to give him priority at bats to where you would have potentially, especially if you give at bats and you believe in the future of a guy like an Andy Pages, 2 guys with some upward trajectory on the aging curve that could be coming up, that could be young, talented players that could help combat some of the potential negative regression that some of these players will have at some point throughout their career. Is Dalton Rushing too much of fitting a square peg in a round hole, or is there too much of a, man, there's not really a lot that we have as far as at-bats to where he's going to be able to get an opportunity on this Dodgers team where they are at right now? I would love to see Dalton Rushing be on this team in the future. Yeah. Depending on the decisions that the Dodgers make, though, his future is in question right now and very much is impacted by the decisions that the Dodgers make during this offseason.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, how old is Max Muncy?
He's getting up there. I don't know exactly what his age is, but
he is 34 years old. So, I mean, he also might be a utility guy by the end of after this year, right? I mean, he might be your Chris Taylor guy that can play all around the infield. You know, I mean, I know he doesn't play outfield, but he can play second base. He can play first base. He can play third base. So, I mean, there's some value. I mean, you could look at
even if he can play second base and first base, how many days are Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman taking off if they play second and first base?
You never know.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to have positional versatility, but if you're not going to use it,
going to pitch, so there's one day integrated automatically into it,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, I mean, that's 1 out of your 6 days right there. And then I think between third base, second base, and first base, you can find 2 or 3 more days a week for him if you wanted. So, I mean, it's tough, yeah. But, I mean, the bottom line is what you're saying is you got to get the value out of Dalton Rushing one way or the other because he's too good. Either you got to get the value out of him on the field or you got to get the value out of him by trading him and bringing in a major league type of player that's going to help you win the next World Series. What you can't do is let him sit there and rot in Oklahoma City and age out of all of his value, like a Ryan Ward is doing, or like, you know, like really kind of a Michael. We got lucky with Michael Busch. that the Dodgers are just so good in the trade markets. But he really did kind of age out, and we just kind of got lucky there. But that's the last thing you want to do. That's the only non-option for Dalton Rushing. I'm good, either way.
Yeah, and this Dodgers organization obviously showed that they highly prioritize his talent because they did not trade him for Garrett.
You got Edgardo Henriquez too. There's another one.
yeah. There's a lot of players like that within this organization, but especially with Dalton Rushing. Yeah. Because of how highly I respect his talents and abilities, and because I know based off of what he's done currently in Oklahoma City, give him a couple of months to get ready to get into the season. And as long as he's comfortable with whatever position that he wants, which don't throw him into random positions at the major league level and not give him experience with that at the minor league level. Have him come up a plan, have him have a plan during this entire offseason so that he can be prepared and work on it. But assuming that he is somewhat comfortable with whatever defensive position that he's going to have, he's going to be ready sometime during the middle, if not towards the beginning of the 2025 season, in which case you're missing out on a huge talent if you do not take advantage of Dalton Rushing, and you are
missing out on a dog.
You're missing out on a huge, absolutely dog, and you're potentially putting yourself at risk of having too many players on long-term deals that could be ending up on expiring contracts later in the season without getting some youth to be able to help supplement that. That is a big concern that I have. Perhaps it's overshadowed. Perhaps I'm making too much of a big deal out of it, and I'm blinded based off of what I saw with Dalton Rushing. That's what the offseason is for, and I will fight for his right to be on this roster, or to find a way to be able to maximize the talents of players that come up through the system, because I think especially from the position player side, they have not been maximizing the talent because they have not been given priority at bats to them.
Right. Hey, Austin, we have a $20 super chat from Christopher Navarro, and it is directed pretty much straight at you for the awesome show. If you have not checked out that show that Austin did on Saturday, man, breaking down the roster spots and all that, that was just stupid good. I mean, that was like the best thing I have ever seen in my life. That was absolutely amazing. If you have not gone and watched that, please do. Now, it may take you, just start it, okay, and then it may take you like listen to it on the way to work. It might take you like 3 or 4 days to do it, right? Because you really need to listen and pay attention. This isn't one of these things that you just put in the background and just have it on. This is one of these things that you sit down and you pay attention to and you listen. Go back and watch that show because it was absolutely amazing. Well done, Austin. And we have a super chat from Christopher Navarro that says, Austin, watch the show you did on Saturday today. Great job. Maybe another one, in-depth metrics explanations for the old school guys.
I'd love to be able to do that. First off,
we got a long off season, dude.
Oh, we've got a long off season. We're gonna have a lot of things to be able to talk about. No, I'm incredibly grateful. Christopher Navarro has been a consistent presence here and part of Dodgers Daily.
Tremendous.
Absolutely wonderful. I appreciate you checking out the show on Saturday. That was a long 2 hours that I was sitting on a Saturday. It was so weird because it was a college football Saturday. I think the Ohio State Penn State game was on, so I was competing against that. I was trying to get it done before the UCLA game, which happened at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30.
UCLA won that game, didn't they?
Oh, they won that
Nebraska,
game. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they beat Nebraska.
At Nebraska.
Yeah, so I was trying to compete against that, but it turns out people love the offseason, and that was a successful stream. But it's because of you guys that was successful.
Absolutely.
So I apologize for the zoomed out portion of the Excel, but I think verbally you're able to get a picture of where this roster is at and some of the decisions that the Dodgers are or aren't going to make depending on what they do going forward. I was pretty happy with that, but certainly with as far as different ideas for different shows, we're open to that. And like a metrics heavy show, I'd be more than happy to dive into some of that stuff. Now you're speaking my language.
Hey, this is from Jay to you as well, Austin. Question for you from Jay, our wonderful moderator. Jay's absolutely awesome. Hey, Jay checked out my O State Daily site the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I wasn't very happy. I mean, Mike Gundy's calling all of his fans losers and failures, and we can't pay our bills because we're bitching about being 0-6 and in conference. It's a mess. Oklahoma State football's a mess right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, Jay came over and checked out my post-game show, of which I was ranting pretty good about how crappy Oklahoma State was the other day against Arizona. How freaking homecoming, and we get beat 42. I mean, it's 42-14 at one point.
You think they're going to win another game this year?
It'd have to be this weekend. I don't think they're going to beat Tech because I don't think they can score with Tech, and they're damn sure not going to beat Colorado on the road. So
yeah,
TCU is very average, but I've been saying that for like a month now. I mean, they had West Virginia at home, and West Virginia's probably going to fire their coach, and they got their ass kicked by them. So it's a mess. I'll just say it. It's a total mess for OSU right now. But that's here nor there. Okay, the question from Jay: Trey Sweeney proved capable at shortstop in Detroit. Do the Dodgers learn a lesson in 2025 and bring up their depth rather than sign the Gavin Bigios of the world?
I sure hope so. Oh, you can. I sure hope so. I hope that they give these guys
too much talent to do that crap again.
Yes, there is too much talent, and there are too many guys that deserve opportunities. And the Dodgers have a lot of money. If they need to find somebody that can, for example, let's say Max Muncy goes down and they need to find somebody that can play third base. Let's say they bring up an Andre Lipsius this time. If he stays within the organization, they can go find somebody either within the organization or somebody else to fill in the roster spot at third base for Oklahoma City. I sure hope that they don't simply rely on the talent from other organizations and that they actually reward guys
on the margins. Use
guys.
the prospects for the margins.
Yeah, yes, you have prospects to be able to do those marginal type things, and you have guys that have fought and sweated for this organization, waiting for their opportunity. Part of the reason why we got so excited when the guy like Hunter Fiducia got called up, even though he didn't get a ton of playing time, it was specifically because he has been fighting for years within this Dodgers system for an opportunity, and when that opportunity is able to come, we celebrate and we rejoice. And I hope that opportunity comes for a lot of other players because these guys are fighting everything for their major league journey, for their major league career. And a lot of them are stuck down in Oklahoma City, waiting, praying for a phone call. How long do you think Drew Avans has been waiting for a phone call?
Well, until he timed out, he's a free agent.
Yes. Yeah. So, it can be frustrating, but also there's a lot of talent. And you saw, like Jay said,
is what it is.
You saw
when you're winning world championships,
go out and perform when he had time in Detroit. And also when you go out and get some of these veteran type players, it didn't seem to work out that well for the Dodgers. At least they didn't get a lot of production for some of those guys. So you might as well build a culture of rewarding guys who are in the system and try to figure out what happens from there. That's what I would do. Will the Dodgers do that? They probably won't. They'll probably keep doing what they always do. And that is frustrating. But I will keep fighting for those guys, and I will keep speaking up for those guys to get opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, and the answer is going to be, well, they won a World Series, so shut the hell up, right? No. That's going to be – and I can't argue with that, not whatsoever. No. I'm still – if you can't tell, I still have not come down off of the Dodgers winning the World Series. It is just absolutely amazing. My response to that would be – it's not because you freaking played Gavin Biggio instead of Andre Lipsius. That has not a thing to do with that you winning the World Series. You might have been. I mean, it's not because you played Gavin Biggio instead of Ryan Ward at first base. It's not because you played Gavin Biggio over Cody Hosey. That margin there. Now I know we talk about the margins, and we've said from the get-go. The Dodgers, their front office, yes, they go get the Ohtanis, but they're so detailed that they also win those small margins, on the margins. They always win them. They know how to do it, right? We saw that in the playoffs make a huge difference with base running and like your weakest link being better than the other team's weakest link and the solid fundamental type ways that the Dodgers were able to make winning baseball plays. So, yes, the Dodgers get the biggest talent, but they do win at least this year they learned how to win on the margins. But I will say my response to that would be there was no margin win by playing Gavin Biggio or whoever that guy's name was 2 years ago that they brought up and DFA'd instead of bringing Hunter Fiducia up in 2023. There was no margin gained in those scenarios.
I totally agree with that, and I think that they should reward some of the guys in their system and see what they have in house to be able to do some of that. I think that would be rewarding, and that would mean a lot for them. And I think talent wise and production wise, what you're going to get, especially if you're not imagining it being a long term fix, might as well give it a shot.
Yeah, Roll Wardo's with Team USA right now and doing a really, really, really nice job. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, we have a whole bunch of comments. We're going to try to fly through some of these. We will not be able to get to all of them. But Andrew Frito, good evening to yourself. Dodgers should stagger Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Glass now, so their seasons start in May or June to keep them healthy for the playoffs. They will need 10 to 12 pitchers to do so. So he's saying start one at this particular time, start another one maybe 3 weeks later, and another one maybe 3 weeks after that, and stagger when they start their seasons.
They got to do something to figure out how to keep these arms as healthy and as fresh as they possibly can be. I think we're all expecting that the Dodgers have the ability to win the National League West, or at least be able to clinch a playoff spot. I think they have the talent to be able to do so. And like we saw them do this season, throughout the course of the season, we weren't anticipating or didn't view this team as being the team that would have the best record in Major League Baseball. Yet they did. And so I think you have the talent, and you have some of the younger guys that can be able to step up and be able to fill in innings where needed. Whatever this organization feels like is the best plan to be able to make that approach work, to be able to keep their top arms healthy throughout the postseason, which I don't want to run into a scenario where we only have 3 starting pitchers and a couple starting pitchers that are healthy going into the postseason that the organization feels comfortable with. Right. I want to see all these guys healthy, and I want to see the best guys be able to go and play during the postseason. So however that works, however the organization has to keep that in mind. Obviously, something in the strategy needs to change as far as making sure these guys get additional rest, and that could be an interesting strategy. I hadn't thought about that before, but I like the creative mindset behind that.
And the Dodgers are very creative. We're going to fly through these. Hey, we have another super chat, Abstract $4.99. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Christopher, Abstract, all of you guys and gals out there that have helped make Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network grow so exponentially just really in the last year. I mean, it is humbling, Austin. It is humbling to see the support on this side, is it not?
Oh, incredibly humbling. Yeah. It started off a lot about talk about minor league baseball players, and that we will continue to do that.
Absolutely.
And that is going to be the core of a lot of our focus. But to see you guys kind of rise up over the past year and be able to support us, it really means a lot to us, and especially to Casey, who's helped build this infrastructure here at Dodgers Daily.
So, Abstract, do you think that the Dodgers now that they won the World Series, that they'll play more freely since the pressure is not on them anymore? That goes directly to why I even said it on this show, win the first one. Because once you get that cap off, it takes so much pressure off of everything. Now you're maybe more likely to bring up a prospect because you're not just so puckered about having to win a World Series, right? You might be a little more free with your decisions as far as those types of situations go because you have won that first World Series. You know, I mean, you will. There's no doubt it will relax the Dodgers, not just in the way that they play on the field. It will relax the decisions in the war room. It will relax absolutely everything about them. Now, I'll say this. Maybe they won the World Series because they weren't relaxed. Maybe they won the World Series because they felt that sense of urgency and they felt like they couldn't be relaxed. And maybe that was the kick in the ass they needed to get over the hump. So sometimes that relaxed actually works against you. The way that it manifests is it shows sometimes teams lose their hunger, which is why, like a lot in the NFL, teams that even when they win the Super Bowl, they don't even make the freaking playoffs the next year.
Yes.
Because you just lose that edge. It's very easy to do. I do not think the Dodgers will do that because they have so many different rotating pieces. Like Tyler Glasnow still hasn't won a World Series on the field. Clayton Kershaw, there's no way he felt like he was instrumental to this World Series this year, right? Some of the younger guys like Kyle Hurt weren't a part of it. And Nick Frosto. So you still have Dalton Rushing. You still have all these guys that really, they're excited that the Dodgers won the World Series, but they want to have their World Series where they actually played a part, right?
Yes, I think that's right, and I think that could potentially be an argument for small changes to this roster. I'm not saying a complete overhaul to this roster because the roster is incredibly talented, but you could make an argument, or you could see how for some of these veteran players, complacency can fall so easily because they were able to overcome this challenge and win the World Series. I'm not saying that's
complacency is too big of a word. Just maybe losing a little bit of edge.
Yes. And I think that's a little bit more accurate as a way of being able to say that, because they've been able to do that. And especially if you keep a lot of the core, which a lot of the core will be returning to this Dodgers team, and a lot of the veteran type players are going to be returning to this Dodgers team. I want to make sure there's additional players that can come into the system and have the exact same edge, have the exact same hunger and drive to win a World Series championship. Now that they've tasted it, they know exactly what it takes to get to that point, to get through a rest after they get through a first round bye, to get through a tough series against a division rival. They know what it takes to get through those points. It requires that edge in the scrappiness and everything, that fight, to be able to get to that hurt. And they're going to have to continue to have more of an edge than the other teams have, because the other teams that they're going to be competing against are going to be desperately as hungry as they are to win and try to find everything that they can to win across from the field from them. They're going to have to find a way to be able to counterbalance that.
Neil, before Zod, thank you so much for joining. Soto?
It's a good question. I have not made it.
I'm weird. I'm a no because I don't like his defense. I think there's enough offense on this Dodgers team. I just like the winning plays element that the Dodgers had that they won the World Series with.
It is hard to argue with a 180 WRC plus, though, and adding that to the lineup.
But did he help? Was he a plus positive or a plus negative for the Yankees in the World Series?
Plus positive.
How so?
Because of what he was able to do.
I think his defense in right field was a plus negative.
Yeah, of course. If you're just arguing with the defensive aspect, I think that's more of a negative.
I think when you put it all together, I think it's a negative.
But also, if you look at, let's take, for example, because I think there's a good chance that he's going to be in the outfield for the Dodgers next season, Teoscar Hernandez, which he was. He graded out as being one of the worst defensive left fielders in the game of baseball.
This year,
he was not good defensively out there, which is why they had to do defensive substitutions for Chris Taylor. Now, if you look at Teoscar Hernandez's output during the season, it was about a 130 WRC plus,
right?
Meaning that Juan Soto was 50% better than a Teoscar Hernandez was on the offensive output. And he is on the upward trajectory of the aging curve. Juan Soto, based off all of his projections offensively and what he's able to do, is going to be a Hall of Fame player. Now, I'm not saying this. I haven't made a decision if it's in the best interest for the Dodgers to put all of their chips on him. Although with this Dodgers team,
that's the whole thing there.
They might have. At this point, I don't know how much of their chips that they have to be able to go, or if there's no limit on the amount of chips that they have. Obviously, Juan Soto is one of the best players in the game of baseball.
One of the best offensive players.
He's one of the best. Yes, he's one of the best offensive players in the game of baseball, and his offensive production, because of the level and extremity that it is, that takes away from the defensive limitations that he might have.
This is where the analytics and the coach differ. See, I firmly believe that the Yankees lost because Aaron Judge and Juan Soto sucked in the outfield, period. End of discussion. I mean, you can say all you want about them being able to hit the ball, having 180 whatever WRC pluses, but the Dodgers went and freaking caught the fly balls. The Dodgers hit their cutoff men. The Dodgers didn't make mistakes. The Dodgers didn't allow extra bases. And then they got enough offense and they made enough winning plays to create a formula that beat two eventual Hall of Famers in Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. So I think it was a huge factor, a huge negative factor, having both Aaron Judge and Juan Soto in the outfield for the Yankees. I think that was a big factor in the Dodgers beating them.
All right, so let's do this hypothetical right here because I want to see where the limitation. Let's push this limit a little bit.
Right.
Okay, let's say that you have a healthy young Kevin Kiermaier. Who are you having in the Dodgers outfield? That healthy young Kevin Kiermaier or Juan Soto?
Kiermaier.
I disagree 100,000%. I say Juan Soto every single time. Let's just say corner outfield.
Well, a corner outfield, you're going to go with Soto because of the power aspect of it.
Yeah, and that's where Juan Soto would
center
be
field,
able to
I'm
play.
going with Kiermaier.
Well, obviously, Juan Soto's not going to be playing center field.
I want Juan Soto as a DH.
Saying, with the defensive aspect, which do you value more for this Dodgers team? The offensive upside and ability of a Juan Soto, or do you value the defensive ability of somebody who is probably well below league average but can play amazing defense?
You're not going to get that, though. You're going to be able to get an above-average league offensive player and also a very, very, very good defensive player. The Dodgers have the chips to do that.
Sure.
You're not going to go get a below-average offensive player for right field. If you're not going to use all, we talked about the chips earlier.
Yeah.
You're not going to use all the Dalton Rushings and whoever it is that you're going to put, maybe even a Bobby Miller or a Kyle Hurt in a trade package and go get a below-average offensive player for right field. You're going to go get a player that is above average offensively and then also a good defensive player.
The question is, how much above average are they? I with this conversation with Juan Soto, what I was just trying to illustrate right there, which I think you acknowledge that Juan Soto is a great offensive player.
He's a great offensive player.
Absolutely great offensive player.
That really hurt his team in the World Series.
I disagree with what he was able to do on the field, and I think if you take into account one series or one 5-game stretch of anybody, you could find different ways in which they hurt their club. But
I think more balanced players, just like more balanced teams, tend to have more equalized production. They're not going to hurt their team in the way that Juan Soto is capable of carrying his team, but he's also capable of hurting his team as well. Whereas like a Tommy Edman, he's going to give you the same thing every day. And that wins on the margins in the playoff type scenarios. I think we saw that.
I absolutely think you saw that, and I think there is a role for a Tommy Edman on this team, but I think it would be I think just Juan Soto with what he's able to do on the bat, which is extraordinarily well above everybody else.
It is.
Not even close. It is extraordinarily above even the level of production that Teoscar Hernandez was able to provide.
And he was pretty damn good in the playoffs offensively.
What was that?
He was pretty damn good offensively in the playoffs, Soto was. He hit 327. He had an OPS of 1102. He had 4 home runs and 9 RBIs. So he had a pretty damn good postseason. He just did not have a good.
So the question is, would you want that? And let's just say that he misses one fly ball, but he's able to hit you 4 home runs throughout the season.
I don't want what he gave the Yankees in the World Series. If it's that version of Soto, I want somebody else, is what I'm trying to tell you.
And I think that is fair. I think if you look at the overall aspect of what type of player Juan Soto is, though, throughout his entire career and what he can actually produce, not just during a short 5-game sample, I think his production is actually really better.
He had 1 RBI against the Dodgers, and I can guarantee you he cost his team way more than 1 run.
I'm not arguing over a 5-game short sample. You don't argue and judge a player based off of the 5 games, even if they are in a World Series type of environment. You judge the totality of where that player is at, and the totality of Juan Soto is a Hall of Fame player.
No doubt. That's a great conversation. And, of course, I'm playing a lot of devil's advocate because everybody would take Juan Soto, right? I mean, the only thing I'm saying is really the devil's advocate, the real devil's advocate that I'm making here is that really the guy that you dump all your chips to go get when you already have a great offense and you have the ability to also go get a really nice offensive player to add to the great offense that you already have?
Yep.
But also a great defender. I mean, I think you can find that guy too. That guy might, what I'm saying is a lot of times it's fit Like, you can give me numbers all you want about Teoscar Hernandez.
Yes.
But you want to know what the biggest the biggest contribution, in my opinion, that he gave the Dodgers this year?
What's that?
He was a perfect fit.
Yep.
He absolutely fit everything they needed. He hit left-handers. He was great in the clubhouse. He got some huge 2-out hits. The fans loved him. He loved being in Los Angeles. So, like I said, I mean, the coach is coming out in me.
Yes.
You can throw stats at me all day. What I'm going to tell you is I guess I gave you some explanations there. Teoscar Hernandez was invaluable because the way that he fit. Max Muncy's a lot the same way, and I bitch and moan about his offensive profile nonstop. But you always remind me, you do a great job of it. He has been a great fit with the Dodgers. Don't necessarily look at the things that he doesn't do. Look at the way that he fits into the puzzle for the Dodgers, and it has worked really, really, really well. So that's kind of what I'm trying to say about Juan Soto is, yes, sometimes players are so great they don't have to be a good fit, right?
Yeah.
Which you're saying he's one of those, and I'm not disagreeing with you. But I'm saying there are other players that could fit the puzzle for the Dodgers to the extent that they actually might fit the puzzle a little bit better.
Yeah, and that's an aspect that statistically, especially fitting the puzzle, fitting into the culture-wise, I'm not able to measure that really at all. That's not a measure that I'm able to. And there's also an argument, especially depending on the chips that the Dodgers have. Look, listen, the Juan Soto discussion was under the assumption that the Dodgers would have an unlimited amount of chips that they would be able to pull in which case they could make other moves. In reality, that's probably not the case, even though they could definitely be able to do some of that, in which case you can make an argument, and probably a really compelling and probably a smarter argument, that they should spread out some of their chips into a wide variety of different factors that can help make round the organization a little bit better. I think Juan Soto is an incredible player, and we probably will have more conversations about him in the future going forward. Will the Dodgers sign him? I'm not expecting it. He would be amazing because he is an amazing type of player, and that would add another Hall of Fame level player to this Dodgers team for the long run, in which case I'd be on thrilled. But we'll have to see what happens with this. Oh yeah, everybody else would, all the other teams would be so mad.
And they can all kiss my ass. So here's another great point to this. BC says the great offense for the Dodgers hit 206 in the World Series. If Freddie doesn't set a record for most consecutive games of the home run, maybe it goes differently, maybe it doesn't. I would say, yes, the Freddie home runs were incredible, and you had to have the one in Game 1, I think. I think if he doesn't hit that one, it goes differently. I think the whole series goes differently. So I would pin it down literally to the first home run he hit. But then I would also say the Dodgers built an offense that can hit 206, but can make winning baseball plays because it has enough dynamics to the offense to still be able to beat the Yankees. That just goes to the point that I'm making, is that you don't have to have the explosive guys that are hitting 350. The Dodgers built an offense where it could go in a slump and still win because it could execute the game of baseball. That's the type of player I want.
They made the smart plays. They made intelligent, right baseball plays. And that was the difference between the Dodgers and the Yankees during that series. The Yankees flat out did not execute some of the simple plays in the game of baseball. They opened up too many opportunities for the Dodgers to take advantage of. And the Dodgers, because they are incredibly talented and because they are opportunistic as a baseball team, were able to take advantage.
Yeah. Here is a great point. Why didn't we think of this, Yang Yi? So, Mookie to second, Teo to right field, Rushing in left field. Then that moves out Andy Pages.
That would move out Andy Pages, or you would have Andy Pages in center field, in which case I've identified that before.
Yes.
Defensively, I would not fully trust that outfield right now.
That's the Juan Soto effect.
Yes.
You're not getting the full positive effect of Andy Pages in center field, in my opinion.
Unless he's able to work on it continuously more, which if Andy Pages was a center fielder, that'd be incredibly valuable for this team if he's able to make consistent improvements at center field, which I have no doubt that he's probably going to be working some out additionally in center field, because I think there's going to be some need for him, especially if they want to move Tommy Edman around, which I think some of the value of having Tommy Edman is he can provide just about anybody on the field a little bit of additional rest as they're needed, and you can plug him with at basically any single position. I think he's going to get more opportunities out there in center field, but if you have Teoscar Hernandez and Dalton Rushing, which this is just my assumption of the defense of Dalton Rushing right now, because he just started playing that in, August. I'm assuming that it's not the greatest defense out in the field. I don't think Teoscar Hernandez has graded out as the greatest outfielder in the game of baseball.
Yeah, so now you have two questionable. That's the
now
Yankee
you have
effect
no.
of the World
You
Series.
don't have two questionable outfielders.
Yeah.
If you don't trust Andy Page's defense in center field, you would have three in that scenario. In which case, I don't know if the Dodgers would fully trust that. Offensive wise or future wise, production wise, I think that would be amazing to get both Dalton Rushing and Andy Pages in the lineup, and I think they could be important pieces to this Dodgers team going forward. You saw what Andy Pages did in Game 5 against the Mets when he went off with those 2 home runs, and that's only scratching the surface of what he's going to be able to do, because he did not get much playing time at all during the postseason. I think he has the ability to perform going forward for this Dodgers team, and they very clearly value him, just like they've shown they very clearly value Dalton Rushing. That could be an avenue that the Dodgers could have for both of them. There is some downside with that, or some limitation, especially defensively, having all those players on the same field right now. Doesn't mean that things could change or their defense could improve, but where I see it right now, there's some risk with that.
Pages Outman platoon. I like that. That's nice in center field. That's a pretty good center fielder right there, right?
That's a pretty good center fielder, especially if James Outman gets anywhere close to his 2023 performance. This is something I say all the time.
And then James Outman's your defensive substitution. And then Pages goes to right field. So now you have James Outman in center field, Pages in right for defensive late substitutions. Now you're great in the outfield.
I like what James Outman is able to do. And remember, for those of you who forget, because it's so easy to keep in mind the most recent performances of players, James Outman was in 2023 basically a top 10, close to a top 5 center fielder in the game of baseball. That's how good he was. He was a 4-WAR player back then. If he can get anywhere close to that type of production, especially because what if he's been able to do defensively, that's an incredibly valuable player. He's also one of the players on this 40-man roster to watch based off of what the Dodgers view as his future and how they can maximize his value while also creating roster spots to help fill out this team.
Hey, Austin, I'm going to we have a question here about, let me start the virtual camera, and then let me put the virtual camera on here, and then you're going to get to see. We have a question about Alex Freeland right here. Let me back that up. Jay asks Alex Freeland, is he a natural shortstop or a natural third baseman? I'm going to let you take that.
I feel really confident in what Alex Freeland would be able to provide at the shortstop position. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, Alex Freeland broke out this season as a prospect within this Dodgers organization. His month in Great Lakes was one of the best months of baseball that I have seen at the Great Lakes level, really ever. Split time between him and Noah Miller at the shortstop position. Right now, I have zero concern about his ability to play shortstop. I think he is that good. I think he can make a lot of the plays. Size-wise, you might be able to kind of profile him maybe as a third base in the future. But if you can get him to play shortstop, which he has all the talent to be able to do so right now, I think you're going to be maximizing his long-term value, at least being able to play some of shortstop. You might be able to platoon him between there and a little bit of third base or second base. I think he can play a little bit of all. So with Alex Freeland, the biggest thing for him, I don't think it has to do with defensively. It definitely doesn't have to do with speed, because this is a guy that can steal also 30 bases. I think it has entirely to do with his swing and miss. It rose up as he went through the upper levels and started to face a little bit more advanced pitching.
It came back.
You would expect throughout the course of the season, especially as you're advancing more and more. If he can get that anywhere close to his levels at Great Lakes, which during his time in Great Lakes, he hit just a ridiculous he was hitting just ridiculously and walking a lot and not striking out at all. He gets anywhere close to that, you have an incredibly valuable player, in which case you have to find a role for the switch hitting shortstop who has speed and has great offensive ability, Alex Freeland. He's one of the guys that broke out through the system I'm incredibly excited about.
Absolutely. Is there any other prospects you wanted to talk about? Did you want to put the Great Lakes season to bed or anything like that?
I mean, I would leave that up to some of the people in the comment section as far as who they want to see. We got a lot of comments that we got to go through, and we can't
do.
be here all
Let's
night.
get to them. Yeah, let's get to them, Austin, because we have some great comments to make, and we have been having a great conversation. So let me scroll back up here, and then hey, if you have any prospects you want to see, leave them in the comments, and we will get to them on our next show, which will be Friday evening, and that'll kind of, if you target who you want to see, that'll make it easier for us as far as the live shows, because we're going to have so many like interviews. I'm going to talk to all the coaches and the managers and play-by-play guys. So we're going to cover all these guys. So if you want specific guys that you want to spend a lot of time on, let us know, and we'll dive into them, these live shows. That's exactly what they are for. So I'm super excited about that. Okay, Orlando, good evening. If Dodgers sign Sasaki, does he have minor league options? Would the Dodgers start him in the minors? I do not believe he'd have minor league options. He'd sign a major league contract, and so he would sign a major league contract, and I do not think he would have options.
Yeah, as far as the contract situation of Roki Sasaki, I believe they would be able to use, I think with the way that his contract is right now, they'd be able to spend, and this is the interesting about Sasaki, is I believe they'd be able to spend the international free agent money that they have left over, which they have a lot of that money left over for this cycle, which I believe expires on the 15th of December. They would spend that money on Sasaki. What that means for his options as far as down to the minor leagues, I don't know exactly. I would actually anticipate he probably would. I wouldn't anticipate him spending any time in the minor leagues, though. If you're bringing in somebody that has that talent, unless there's something worrisome to you, I think you would anticipate him being part of this major league club. I just don't know the logistics.
25 years old.
If he has them.
Until he's 25.
Yes.
So how old is he right now?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly how old he is.
Let me look. Hold on one second. Roki Sasaki. I don't want this to be too. Let's see. He was born. He's 23. So yeah, he would. He'd have a year or two worth of options. Hey, but I think you hit it there. I don't think he would. I don't think the Dodgers would exercise.
You know, actually, I have an idea. How about for either the first half, and then maybe he can come down in about mid-September for the first half of the season. How about he's there in Great Lakes?
Oh, Oklahoma City.
No. Yeah, I don't want to
fight over that one, Austin.
I don't want to be him a comment. I want him to be a Greatlakesloon because I'm desperate, just like the Dodgers won a World Series title. I desperately want, and I will be traveling, and I will be fighting for a Midwest League championship. I want Roki Sasaki for Great Lakes, however long it takes them to reach a playoff spot. Then he can go up to the Dodgers. He can succeed. Then he can come back to the minor leagues for the Midwest League championship, which I'm pretty sure that's illegal, but we're going to ignore that for right now. Then he can come back and win a Dodgers World Series title.
Hey, Christopher Navarro said, hey, yes, definitely, Gregory. Please smash that like button if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment in the regular not the chat here. Go into the regular comment section underneath the video once it posts. Leave a comment, like it. That way, once it archives, it will get seen a little bit more, and then that always helps us. The more it gets seen, the more ads that play, and the more that we can put a little bit of cash in our pocket for this type of thing and pay for our trips to our different places and that kind of thing. So definitely smash that like button. Christopher Navarro says rushing to left field. I'm not sure how good his defense is there yet. I'm not sure either. And I can tell you this, the Dodgers aren't sure either because they haven't seen him there enough. Nobody on earth can tell you how good of a left fielder right now Dalton Rushing is. They can give you a projection of what they think based on his mentality and his high hand coordination, his athletic ability, but they can't for sure tell you how good of an out left fielder specifically Dalton Rushing is.
I think that's accurate, and that leads into some of the fears that I have as far as his future with this Dodgers right now, especially with all the limitations. I just think so highly of Dalton Rushing, and that is not just because I look at the prospect list. That's because I spent an entire season watching him grind and seeing his leadership ability and what he's able to do. I just think that highly of what he's going to be able to do for this Dodgers team, that I want him to find some sort of spot. And I'm sure a lot of people here on Dodgers Dogs would love to see Dalton Rushing part of this Dodgers team.
Hey, Cole says I'd rather have shortstops. Of course, if you move Edman to shortstop, then you'd be getting a center fielder. So either way, or if you put Edman in center, then you'd be getting a shortstop. I think it would be easier to find the center fielder you want. That's another reason why I think putting Tommy Edman at shortstop really puts you in a better position. So if you put Edman at short and Betts at second, and then you go find a center fielder and right fielder, you're going to be able to find some great players. There's going to be some great players available as far as outfielders, as far as center fielders and right fielders go. A lot easier to find those guys than it would be to find a shortstop and a second baseman. That's what we were talking about earlier. So, hey, we have a wonderful poster in here called Hepatitis. See you later. Aleph Minerva is making a funny comment. Hard pass on both Soto and hepatitis. Good grief. The Dodgers Dogs are the best. And by the way, the next comment is from Hepatitis. See you later. I don't know how people can pass on Soto. People say he's a clubhouse cancer, but the worst thing he has ever done is the cocky shuffle. No off-the-field issues. I get the money, but we have a lot. Yeah, we won't get into more of the Soto stuff. We had a good devil's advocate back and forth on him, covering both sides of that. Hey, Colossal Jaguar says Kopech closer. He definitely has closer type stuff. No doubt about that. Jason Soretti. I don't know if he has closer type control, though. The last thing you want is when you're trying to get the last 3 outs of a game, having a guy that can't throw strikes. And we also saw against a team like the Yankees that just nail fastballs. Michael Kopech can't land his slider for a strike. Teams like that are going to hit Michael Kopech. We saw that.
Yeah, we did see that, and that is a potential warning sign. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces for this Dodgers bullpen. What they're going to be able to do, they're probably going to mix and match until they find a guy that they feel comfortable with during that later inning. I don't think they're going to come into the season with a designated closer, but I think there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to get opportunities to close out games during high leverage spots, and we're going to have each one of these guys be able to, throughout the course of the season, prove their worth. In which case, for a guy like Blake Treinen, I wasn't expecting him to be the closer for this Dodgers team, but that is exactly what he became.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all, just because of the trust tree factor of it and how good he is. That was such a Dodger move to have him become the closer like that. So, hey, Jason Soretti, Gunnar Henderson is the top of his list. It would take a haul. Is that a haul? Now, we've talked about putting all your chips in for this or that. I'm not sure I meant something that big because, I mean, you're going to have to give away – my God.
Well, he's with Baltimore right now. Baltimore has every expectation of being competitive.
Correct.
They have under new ownership, which means that they're probably going to spend a little bit more money on free agency, and they're going to try to maximize the value of the players that they have. I have zero expectation that Gunnar Henderson is going to be going anywhere for the next couple of seasons. I think he is firmly planted in Baltimore. I think you're going to have to look to see if there's some guys on teams that you don't anticipate being competitive to where you could work out in agreement for some type of trade, in which case the opportunity or some of the availability becomes extremely limited. Dodgers are not getting a Bobby Witt no matter who they give up or any type of player at that caliber. You're looking at a different caliber, in which case you have to compare them to some of the guys that could potentially be that are free agents during the course of this offseason and see if it is better to go out and trade for them or go out and sign a player like a Willie Adames or a Ha-Seong Kim.
Yeah. Hey, History Man just got his World Series championship T-shirt in the mail today. How about that?
Hey,
that's
there you
awesome.
go.
Hey, Christopher Navarro said, Cole, we talked about Lux and his situation earlier. Christopher, quite a bit. Christopher Navarro, and that's probably when you posted this because we're quite a bit behind on the chat here. But Christopher Navarro, when Kopech comes in to close, I have to pour a big drink. Takes him half a dozen pitches to find the strike zone. That's kind of what we're talking about. And then also, teams that hit fastballs are going to hit him. Hepatitis, see you later. Teo Robert Jr. Soto would be fire. Edmund Gold Glove shortstop.
That is a lot to add to this Dodgers team. That would make this lineup almost unstoppable. Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot to dream on what this Dodgers team can do. That is not my predicted outfield for the Dodgers, although that'd be pretty sick.
Yeah, Colossal Jaguar says, I'll take Tommy Edman as shortstop all day. I'll add to that, Colossal Jaguar, I'll take it twice on Sundays. Al of Minerva, you can have 2 elite players for that price, like a Cy Young caliber and a solid bat with a glove for a similar dollar range to a Juan Soto. So, I mean, having one guy that ties – the beauty of Shohei is the fact that he's only taking $46 million off of your salary cap.
Yes.
I mean, that's well, that's not the beauty. But that was the beginning of the beauty of it because he allowed you to build a dynasty.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He was extremely unselfish with the way that he structured his contract to put this Dodgers team in a position to be able to add players that can help this team win. And I think it's a different conversation when you're talking about, would Juan Soto be great on the Dodgers? Of course, Juan Soto would be great on the Dodgers because he's a great baseball player. But how do you maximize the resources that you have to build the best team? It's not necessarily go all in on 2 players. That seemed to be what the Yankees had done and what a lot of their team was built off of, those star quality, talented players, as
and
opposed
their marginal
to
players weren't good enough.
As opposed to, I think that's exactly right. The Dodgers, as far as their other players that they have, they just performed significantly better than the Yankees, and they were more fundamentally sound. They were able to overcome the aspects and the star power that the Yankees did have. And that is an argument for the Dodgers to be able to spread out their resources if they wanted to go out and get additional depth at the starting pitcher and a good solid position player if they wanted to get a starter and a shortstop. However they want to determine that, I think they have to think the whole team in mind, which is a whole different conversation between would you like this player on the Dodgers team is how do you build the best roster for this Dodgers team.
That's another devil's advocate point against Soto, is that it just takes up so many resources for one player that it's not always the most advantageous thing. Hey, O'Donnell Boy has a question. You think Outman will have a bounce back?
I believe in James Outman with what he's able to do. I don't know if he gets the opportunity, how much of an opportunity he gets to be able to make a bounce back. That would be my one concern right now with a James Outman. I still believe in the type of talent and the type of player that James Outman is, and I still believe in his future. The question is, how much of an opportunity is he going to get, especially on this Dodgers team, and is he able to fix some of those swing and miss concerns that he has had that has
got to be below 30%.
He's got to be able to ring that in a little bit. I think there was a little bit of batted ball luck against him early in the season, which I started to point out. It just didn't turn into his favor at the major league level, and especially as the strikeouts started to rack up a little bit. He's still got a bright future, and he still has all the tools to be a great player in this game of baseball. Will he be given the opportunity to be able to unlock those skills, and do the Dodgers have the patience to be able to give him that opportunity? That's where I have my doubts.
No doubt. I think you're exactly right there. Craig Osterberg says, need more left-handed relief pitchers. With Tanner Scott being a free agent, is now the time to go get him?
That's a good question. I tend, and this is just me personally, I tend to lean towards no as far as signing bullpen pieces to longer term deals, just because I believe you can find bullpen pieces that are more high leverage.
As good as Tanner Scott?
I don't know about as good as Tanner Scott, but I think you can find different bullpen pieces that can be really, really good throughout the course of that. One argument that you could say for Tanner Scott is he does not have to face Shohei in that case. And we saw what happens when he went up against Shohei. And I'm certain that some team in the National League, if the Dodgers don't pick him up, are going to be very highly invested in getting a weapon like that. That's certainly an argument for going for him. I've also been somebody that has been wanting this Dodgers team to target a Tanner Scott, but previously that was via trade that wasn't giving him a long-term 4 or 5 year
knowing he was
going
to be a free agent after this year.
Knowing he would be a free agent. And I think locking up some of those guys to longer term deals when the bullpen arms, especially, they could be a little bit of a roller coaster up and down. You don't necessarily know what they're going to get. I think there's a lot of risk in that, and I think you can get a lot of other reward, and the Dodgers have shown the ability to get a lot of reward out of some of the other guys that they've targeted.
Hey, Cole's agreeing with you, picking up Barnfield, the fate of one of those other two catchers, probably also Diego Cartaya as well. Christopher Navarro, Lux needs to play every day somewhere. There's talent there. I totally agree with that. And right now, as we said earlier, I think he's never going to be more valuable than he is right now. The Dodgers got the best value out of him. They made him valuable in the trade market, also won a World Series with him on the field. It could not have worked out any better. Now cash that in and take advantage, which the Dodgers always do. Daryl Jackson, I like to know more about Alex Freeland. Yeah, we talked about him. Hey, Al Minerva outfield could be epic, no doubt. Hey, Clint Pasillas joined us earlier talking about Tommy Edman all day. Thanks, Clint, for joining. I think that was quite a while ago, so we're probably like about 45 minutes behind on the chat, but that's okay. Hey, Gavin Lux is really good at second base. Lux and Vargas. Sammy Boy Smith is saying can go to the Chicago White Sox. Let me actually go back down to the bottom and then work my way back up a little bit, and we're going to go about 5 more minutes here. Austin, you got about 5 more minutes?
Oh, I've got 5 more minutes for the people for here at Dodgers Daily. Absolutely, yeah. I've got about 5 more minutes.
Hey, Dodgers Raiders everything said we had a closer for multiple years and it never won us a championship. We move off having a closer for the past couple seasons, and boom. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's Dave being able to use his best pitchers to get the biggest 3 outs.
That seems to be not just what Dave's doing. That seems to be the trend of Major League Baseball. You have certain guys and matchups of the lineup that you want certain guys to be able to maximize. Obviously, the last 3 outs are difficult, and they are a little bit of a different breed. However, getting the high impact bats out is probably more important than that. And if you have a bullpen that is able to be flexible and be able to move around and pitch in any different type of situation and be comfortable with it, that's when you can play the matchup game. And I think that's what Dave Roberts did so incredibly well throughout the postseason. And I think it's because a lot of these guys had experience. Some of them had experience late in the game, closing out games. I think there was a wide variety of different guys that were able to do that. And you also had them pitch in different high leverage situations throughout the season to when it got to the postseason, they were ready to go and they were all in.
Christopher Navarro, will Diego Cartaya ever be on the Major League roster? Will he turn his career around? Well, they did put him on the 40-man, so they're going to have to make up their mind on him next year.
It is, yes, they're going to have to make up their mind on him. I was encouraged by what he was able to do at the AA level, just looking from an outside perspective. Got the call up to AAA. He still needs some time. He's still incredibly young for what he has, and I feel for him and all the pressure that was put upon him and all the expectations to where everybody's now looking at him as not exactly the type of prospect that he was previously. Will he have a future on this Dodgers team? I don't see how he does this season unless there's some type of injuries, especially because I think Dalton Rushing probably has leapfrogged him in the mind of this organization.
So they can trade him. That's what they need him to do.
Yes.
They come to Oklahoma City and start out about 400 in the first 2 months.
And I don't know if the answer is wait and hope that he gets hot or open up a roster spot with him during the course of this offseason and move him to another organization. That, I think, is the bigger question right now, and the more likely scenario for him is either he stays on the roster and look to trade him during the season or trade him during the offseason because roster spots are incredibly valuable to this team.
Yeah, Mike Lynn 8 think they can't go into next season with Miggy Rowe as shortstop. I said that if there's one thing I was right about this whole year is that Miggy Rowe can't be your everyday shortstop. Not because he's not good, but because he's 36 years old. He might be 37 by now. I don't know. He's just not going to be able to physically endure that. So he cannot be your plan for everyday shortstop going into next season. No doubt about that. Yes, Teo made an awesome play to throw out Giancarlo Stanton at home plate. That was simply fantastic. BC, they did average 5 runs a game, but only 4.2 excluding extras. Yeah, Yang Yi, so move Mookie to second. Teo moves to right field. I think we already we already covered that one. So I think that's going to get us through pretty much most of the chat, not all of it. We apologize if we did not get to your chat. We'll get to it on your next show. Come back and we'll be one of the first ones that we get to. We had a lot to talk about as the offseason gets started. So, Austin, this has been a great conversation. We always do. Like we try to cover both sides of every conversation, right? And I think we did that tonight with the chat as well. So, hey, any final thoughts here?
No, it's fun talking a lot about this stuff, even though there's no baseball, which I wish there was baseball and we were talking about baseball right now. It's still fun to be able to talk about the future and the moves that we have. It's fun to be here with you, Casey, here on Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. It's fun to be here in studio. As you notice, I don't know if you guys have noticed, I've had a couple of different posters, and they'll probably be transferring out a little bit, doing a couple of hidden things in the background, unless you guys try to figure out exactly what those are for. Hint, they're related to Great Lakes a little bit. No, it's fun being here and talking about this. And there's a lot of different moves that the Dodgers could take with this team in the future. I think we all, both Casey and I and all of you guys, in spite of the fun of arguing back and forth and playing devil's advocate and talking through each one of these, the reason why we're doing that is because we want this Dodgers team to win a World Series, and we're doing everything that we can to make this team as successful as possible, and we're thinking through all of the different avenues to make that a reality. So I hope you guys are along and part of the way, because like I acknowledged at the beginning of the show with the point that Jay had made as far as shoheiohtani potentially adding an additional pitcher to this Dodgers team, because him being a two-way player, there's different aspects that even Casey and I don't think of, and that's why we need you guys along the way with this. It's not just for views or for you to be there. It's because you guys make us better as commentators here on Dodgers Dogs. We couldn't do this without you guys.
100%. This has been just an absolutely blast of a show. A reminder, we actually had this question. Austin, you're going to go on the Mondays that you're able at 5 o'clock Pacific. So all the shows are going to be at 5 o'clock Pacific. So we're going to have a show on Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then typically on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, we'll release some type of interview from one of the prospects or one of the minor league managers, or like Alex Freeman, one of the play-by-play guys. Those other days will be all of our prospect coverage videos in one shape or form. And then as we get into these, we like to keep these live shows to the chat, and usually the chat is about Major League teams. But what we're eventually going to transition into, like we did last offseason, is the last 30 minutes of these live shows will be all prospect talk. And we're going to get into more of that as we go on. So that's pretty much so. Basically on Wednesday and Friday, the last 30, and Sunday, the last 30 minutes of those shows will be all prospect talk. You'll have Tuesdays, Thursday video, and Saturday video that will be all about prospects. And then you'll also have all the live shows I mentioned, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That is all about the Major League talk and the hot stove talk and what's going on with the Major League teams. So we have it all covered. That's the schedule. I hope I explained that properly. Austin, one last time, thank you for joining, man.
Thanks for having me, Case.